really big reason of why I want to join the military. There's a war going on. Why do I want to be a Navy SEAL? Well, because they're the ones getting after. They're the tip of the spear and I can see it. I hear the news. I see the stories. I read the books, right?
I recently saw a New York Times article about an SDV mission in North Korea around the same time that went kind of amiss. But there's so many things about that article that me knowing what I know just seemed really out of place. And we kind of talked about the OPSEC thing. And so I'm just, not that you need to address the article or anything in it too far, but I just wanted to kind of see if you have any perspective you can share on that article and its implications or anything like that.
Yeah, I read the article and there's a lot that shouldn't be said. There's capabilities that shouldn't be talked about. And so I have my personal opinions on it. And that's pretty much it. I feel like there's certain people that are in the need to know. And the general public doesn't need to know what types of missions we're doing with the platforms and capabilities that we have as special operators. And the world now, this view into this and this insight into some of our capabilities, which means that's in the back of all their heads. So now any combat swimmer type operations, anti-swimmer protection within off coastlines is going to get a lot more, could be implications with that, right? Of just kind of using your head and saying, if this is a threat, then what am I going to do to protect my country? That's my biggest concern.
Yep.
Is that there's too much awareness of our capabilities. Everybody knows we can jump in out of the sky, right? We can fly in, jump it, like we can do it. We have that capability. You can Google and just search for learn about the many sub capabilities. But truly, what can we do with that? A lot of people don't know. And now I think some people's eyes are open to potential capability, which then if we're in wartime or just something we're trying to do, there could be issues with that down the road. And yeah, caution and concern for that. That's my biggest issue with that article released to the world, is that thought.
Absolutely. I mean, the job in and of itself is already dangerous enough. Just in training, we can get injured, we can die. And then whenever you go out overseas, I mean, the gloves are off. It is playing for keeps. And by increasing that danger level for everyone that comes behind us is just no go.
Yeah, because when you've been in that situation, you know how sketchy it is already. You're already running into stuff. I can't go into too much stories with it, but it's not like, oh, we're just rolling around and things are easy. The stars have to align properly in order for the mission to go right. And any other challenges that get thrown in the way are going to make it even more challenging. Because I've been there, done that. And I don't like seeing that, just the capabilities all over the news.
Right.
That's my biggest concern with it.
Big time. Yeah. I think that whoever it was and why, whether it was something or whether it was totally just a hit piece, I'm not sure. But yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't think that anyone should have come forward. If they did, I don't know that they did, but if they did, they definitely shouldn't have. And there's just no reason for putting that stuff out there.
No.
So kind of down a little bit. So was there a time throughout your career that you felt like you were just operating at your peak? You were firing all cylinders. And what did that look like? What did that feel like? Maybe you can guide our listeners or some of your candid hopefuls through that feeling.
Early on, as a new guy, I felt like our platoon was really dialed. And I've never felt any other team environment like that before, where it was just everybody's locked on and everybody's in sync with each other. There was a few guys that didn't quite fit and they got removed from the platoon. But after that happened, it was like, we're locked on. And so we did a couple platoons back to back with the same core group of guys. We had a couple new guys roll in, but core group was a couple platoons in a row. And that second platoon, we were dialed and they used our platoon to go do one of the missions. And because of the capabilities that we had developed and honed within our platoon. And that was, like I said before, one of the coolest experiences to know that you're at the tip of the spear, that nobody else can do what you can do. It took us a few years to get to that point. But when everything was running smoothly, you knew what your brothers were going to do. Everybody was qualled up. Everybody had all the quals they could ever want. And now you're just dialed. They can pick the mission set for you. The command has something that comes down and they're like, we know who we're going to pick to go to this mission. They're the platoon to go do it. It took the time, though, the work. They say 10,000 hours to acquire skills and to really become good at something. You do that and more within just diving and over the beach training and the regular SEAL quals you have to maintain and all of that, the quals you get, the schools you go to. You just have to be willing to put the work in. And I think a lot of guys don't realize it. They see 1 year. They say, I can become a Navy SEAL in 1 year. What they don't see is all the training that happens after you become a SEAL. As you know, there's so much more pro dev to go through. Courses, certifications, you become somebody, then you become the department head, and then you go to all the other schools that have to do with that. Civilian courses that they can put you through. So you become the subject matter expert, and you have a platoon packed with subject matter experts. And that is the coolest experience. Because not only do you have like a bunch of guys who can kind of do the job, you have everybody who's called up at the top that they can, as far up as they can go. And so that experience with being in a room full of guys that just they're dialed, and then you can go out in town with them and have a good time too. It's like you can have fun with them and you also can lock on with them and you know that you've got each other's back. Coolest experience. The flip side of that, though, I would say you got to take care of yourself. And I think this happens to a lot of guys, a lot of high performers. It happened to me. You skip lunch, you work through the night. I'm going to just live off of caffeine. My OIC had a cooler of Monsters under his desk and he'd crack one open first thing in the day. He'd have one at lunch. He'd have one in the afternoon. You can't go full tilt every day for years on end. Guys will get burned out. And that's what happened to a lot of guys in our platoon. You operate at such a high level for extended period of time. At some point, things are going to start happening to the body. You can't maintain that for forever. So the word of caution I have for guys is take the rest days, take the time off. Don't work through lunch if you can help it. Take care of your body, take the weekends off, decompress because you need to keep taking care of you because you're not going to be 25 for the rest of your life. You're going to go into your 30s and 40s and hopefully you can still operate as if you were in your 20s. But if you don't take care of yourself in your 20s or your early 30s, you're going to be a wreck. And you're not going to be able to perform. And that's what happened to a lot of guys in my platoon as we went on, was just because there was this cycle of, I'm a yes man. I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. I'm going to go do all the schools that I get offered. And that's important. You need to be able to go, go, go. But on the flip side, you got to say, I got to back off a little bit. I got to take some time off. The command realized this too late. They realized that guys were burning out and they sent everybody on a mandatory Turtle Bay resort stay. It was a little too late for a lot of guys. And they were just, I'm done.
Yeah.
And they said yes so many times. The platoon would say yes to the command headship because they knew that if we said yes, we could go get the best missions. And that's what everybody wants because you're chomping at the bit. But at the same time, you have to say, the boys need some rest. We've been going. We don't need to go take a trip to Shaw's right now. We need a few weeks off. We don't need to pack in another training trip right now when we have a little bit of gap time. We need some time off so they can heal their bodies, heal their minds, reconnect with their significant others so they can come back and be locked on. That's the flip side to being a top performer. You have to be able to do both. And you have to realize that the body needs that rest and recovery.
Man, that is so huge. One, I'm glad that you're speaking about it now because I'm getting goosebumps just hearing you say it because it does need to be saying. It resonates with me in a huge way because that's what happened to me is I pushed myself till I burnt myself out. I hit the wall and it was not pretty. And I do not wish that experience on anyone. So I'm glad you're saying it here because it also tells me that you're talking about this in the Warrior Calling with some of the people that you're working with. And so that's been your new venture. Do you mind kind of cluing us in to what you're doing with the Warrior Calling and how your transition moved you into that space?
Yeah, absolutely. When I got on other teams, like a lot of guys, I was clueless because all I did before the military was just go to community college, work some random jobs. So all I knew really was the SEAL teams for 11 years. And so when I got out, my wife wanted to go to college overseas and get her degree in England. So we did that. I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to go get my degree and I'm going to go travel and we're going to do the normal civilian job that everybody gets to do. So I fixed my LinkedIn. I did my resume. We went to England. We sold our house in San Diego, moved to England. And I went to Goldman Sachs as an intern in London. I did everything you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
You start to put up your LinkedIn, you build out your resume, you say how badass your job was. And Nobody cares. Like, I don't care if you say Navy SEAL on your resume, like whatever. It doesn't really matter. So anyways, I rolled into Goldman Sachs and did my 3-month internship there. And as I was ending my internship, which, side note, 10 hours a day in front of a computer as an analyst, intern, former SEAL, you're used to spending time outside, right? I was an instructor at second phase. So I would spend hours in the pool every day. And then to go from that to like sitting in front of a computer with a bunch of college grads in Fleet Street, London, was such a flip for me. I wanted to find the nearest bridge and jump off of it, to be completely honest. It was like,
Get back in the water.
I please leave the situation. However, I was also telling myself, stay open-minded, try things. This could go somewhere, maybe. But at the end of my internship, there was a lot going on, and this is 2018. And they had a hiring freeze right around the same time that I finished my internship. And so because I was not a British citizen, they said, we are not going to hire you. After I went through a bunch of interviews at the office there, and they said, yeah, we're not going to hire you, but we'll put in a good word for you when you go back to the States, if you want to go work in New York or LA at Goldman Sachs. And I said, cool, I'll take that on board. And then I came back to the States after a year in England. I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I finished my college degree, did the internship, did some stuff in sales in California, and eventually found myself back in San Diego working a real estate job. And it was one of those things. It was 2019, 2020. Pandemic was just starting, kind of rolling in 2020. And we bought a house in San Diego, could barely pay for the mortgage. We had 2 kids, newborn and a 5-year-old. Wife worked from home. I was working the real estate job. Everything shut down for COVID. I got diagnosed type 1 diabetic early 2020. And I was very unhappy in my job. My boss got let go. My boss above me got let go, and they had been in the company for years, and then they got let go. So I'm like, wow, I thought I had this solid career in real estate. I could see myself moving up in this company. They like me. I'm doing well. I can just stay in this. But my boss got let go. This is COVID time. And because they're letting people go. So I realized that the security I thought I had with my new career could just go away. Like my job could just vanish. And I have a family to provide for. We were in debt because we, blew all our money in England, just trying to survive. Internship didn't make anything for us. So we were starting from scratch. After we got out of the military, we had some savings. We didn't have a home. We had no cars when we came back from the UK. So literally scratch, trying to rebuild our life. And so during that time in COVID, and it was mid 2020, and I said, I had a coach, and I told him, I don't think I can do this career for the rest of my life. And I'm really passionate about being a coach. I felt they talk about calling, what is your purpose in life? I love teaching. I love training. I loved it being at second phase and teaching guys closed circuit diving and pool comp and all of that. And I had some guys reaching out when I was in San Diego in real estate, and they knew I was an instructor at Buds. They knew I'd been a SEAL. And they said, can you train me to become a SEAL? And so I said, well, maybe this could be something. Maybe I could start training guys that want to be elite performers, not just go into the SEAL teams, but athletes, maybe CEOs, entrepreneurs that want elite performance. So end of 2020, I called my boss. I said, hey, I'm going to put in my notice and I'm going to step away at the end of the year. That was probably the scariest thing I've ever done. In the military, you do a lot of scary stuff, a lot of missions that are kind of sketchy. And there's moments of fear and anxiety and emotion that, what could happen? I've never been more scared than when I quit my 9-to-5 at the end of 2020 and decided to become a coach and go all in on that. But that was honestly what it required. It required that I go all in on something again. I went all in on becoming a Navy SEAL. My new calling in life was to become a coach and a mentor to the next generation of warfighters. I felt that in here. But it was one of the hardest things to call my boss up and say, hey, you hired me 2 years ago. You believe in me. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm going to quit and I'm going to become a coach. And he was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. So at the end of the year, I'm going to step away from this. I felt like the thing that I felt called to do was become a coach and mentor. I made the name of it the Warrior Calling, because I feel like if you feel called to do something, you'll go to the ends of the earth to make it a reality. I want that for guys. I want that for men and women. I want them to find something that's so much more outside of who they are that it scares them, but they're not willing to turn aside to that and say, no, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to go all in. So the Warrior Calling was born 2021, started coaching guys. It was great. Initially, I didn't really make any money, barely made any money, but we had a gym in Coronado we would train at. And I started bringing guys onto the team. I started coaching them and training them up, going to the bay with them, getting in the water with them, swimming with them, running with them, building out programming, mindset training, weekly Zoom calls, just basically just immersing myself into the coaching experience. How can I help these guys, not just from San Diego, but from around the world? Started using social media, started using Instagram, just posting some stuff. Guys started reaching out. And the snowball kind of built from that point and rolled. And here we are today with what has been built. But it was the calling started with my calling to pull the trigger on this thing. So I know how scary it can be for some of these guys when they start going down this path, because sometimes it's like, wow, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. I've been there multiple times. I got you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dude, I can relate to what you're saying, that whole, what are we doing now? Like, there's something's got to change. And yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you're working with the new generation every single day. From your perspective, from your vantage point, there's this kind of, obviously you and I, we both experienced the last hard class, right? Everybody after us is softer. You know what I'm saying? So you talked about it earlier, is about putting out a better product. But from your vantage point, do you feel like Gen Z is softer? Or do you think that the core tenets of grit and resilience are kind of a timeless thread that we can all share?
The character is still character. And those qualities you just mentioned are required for any generation. Yeah, I don't like to put somebody in a box. That being said, I think this current generation is fairly distracted. I also think that some of them lack a strong reason why. For us, many of us, it was 9/11, right? I want to bring justice to the enemy. There was a catalyst. There was that really big reason of why I want to join the military. There's a war going on. Why do I want to be a Navy SEAL? Well, because they're the ones getting after. They're the tip of the spear and I can see it. I hear the news. I see the stories. I read the books, right?
Absolutely.
I think that is one of the things right now that is probably the most challenging for this generation, is finding their deep reason why. Because selection is selection. It is hard. It was hard back when we were going through. It's challenging now. It's not easy. Cold is still the cold. The standards are still the standards. So that is not changed. I think what's, like I talked about before, the why, the heart. If you don't have a good enough reason why, if you see the SEALs on Instagram, the influencer types, they're great guys. But if that's who you want, if you're like, I want that, I want to become somebody who other people look up to, you've lost it. You've lost the whole point. It's a quiet professional. It's not about any influencer. It's about being behind the scenes. It's about how we were. We didn't use social media when we were in the teams, or at least if we were on it, we were unknown. You stay in the shadows. That's the whole point. So the reason why do I want to be a Navy SEAL? That's the biggest question I ask these guys, the younger guys coming in. And then I dig even deeper. Why do you want to become a SEAL? What is it for you? When you're cold, wet, and sandy, you're not going to be thinking about jumping out of planes and shooting guns. You're going to be thinking about somebody else. You're going to be thinking about something a lot deeper than that. The guys that make it through have a strong reason why. I've heard people say, you'll kind of figure out your why as you go. I doubt that. If you have a hard time providing clarity on why you want to do something hard, then why do it at all? Because a lot of guys go down this path, and I've talked with a few guys and I've heard this. I'm looking for a challenge. I want to do the hardest thing. I was like, bro, go do something else. Buds is hard, but Buds is like, that's 6-month job interview. You're not even a SEAL during Buds. So why do you want to be a SEAL? You're looking for the hardest thing to do in life. Yes, selection is hard, but that's not being a SEAL. So if your mindset stops at selection, there's something wrong. It should end past the trident. It should be, I'm getting this trident to become a Navy SEAL so I can serve at the highest level, so I can be the best leader that I can be, so I can take the fight to the enemy, so I can bring justice, whatever that is what you're training for. That's what all the blood, sweat, and tears of Hell Week and first and second, third phase and SQT is all about. It's not about, oh, I want to do something hard. I want to go through Hell Week. I want to train to be a Bud student for the rest of my life. I'm like, bro, don't even go there, because when you get to selection then, and you're going through Hell Week, and your brain's like, okay, why are we here? We're here now. You made it to Hell Week. And your brain's like, okay, Roger that. You've made it. Like, you made it. You're there. And you're like, well, now what's the next thing? Why am I doing this? Okay, it's Wednesday night. Why am I staying? And your brain's trying to figure it out. It's like thinking hard. Like, wait, why are we here? You've made it. You've made it to the hardest thing ever. What's the reward? Why are we going through this? And so guys will shut off and they'll go dark with it because they don't have anything beyond that, because they wanted to do the hard thing. Roger that. But if you don't have a good reason why you want to be a special operator, then don't even go down that path, because there's a lot of hard things you can do in life. You got to want to do the job, what you signed up for, what the trident means. What does that mean? Right? Instead of, I just want to do the selection pipeline. Nobody stays in the job interview for the rest of their life. It's like any job. It's like becoming a doctor and you decide to stay in school for the rest of your life. Like, that doesn't happen. You get through school and you become somebody and you do that career. That's what you're training for. That's why you train hard before buds. That's why you perform when you're at selection. You build your reputation, and then you perform as a special operator for as long as you possibly can. So I think the mindset needs to change. So that's why, same thing as has been before. It's true. Why? Why do you want to do this? What's the thing for you? And can you go to sleep at night and know exactly what it is? And a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with your father, your grandfather, maybe somebody else you looked up to. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe you feel called to do this. You feel like God has placed something in front of you. Whatever the heck it is, it's better be outside of you instead of just saying, I can't wait to become a Navy SEAL because then I can go to the beach and flex and show off all my tattoos, right? Like, what is the reason why? And so guys will get to selection and they'll tap out because their reason wasn't so deep at the core foundation. It's like, that's why a bunch of scrappy kids like ourselves make it through. And guys that have maybe their own whys don't really have a strong foundation, maybe they're not so successful. But there's a lot of average guys in the teams or below average, right? I'm 5'7". I was 165 pounds going through selection. I shouldn't have made it, right? I'm not tall. I'm not strong. I was never the fastest guy, but you'll see a bunch of average dudes in the teams with above average desire to be successful and to serve with the best of the best. And that's the way I've seen it. So I think, going back to your question, it's just, the question remains, what is your why? Why do you want to be a Navy SEAL? And if they can answer that, anything else really can go aside. I don't care what generation you are, because character is character and the selection is selection.
That's great. So you're talking about mental toughness. You've talked about the why. So let's just take that why into some of those mental toughness realms. You and I know that, yeah, there's a certain amount of innate, just scrap that comes from the why. But in a lot of ways, we can learn things, we can drill things, we can develop a degree of mental toughness and resilience. Is there a specific practice or drill that you teach your students within the warrior calling to proactively build that mental toughness so that they have resilience whenever crisis does occur, or whenever they reach that moment? It's cold, you're wet, you're sandy, it's the middle of the night, the new shift's coming on, it's dark, and all you want to do is have a freaking warm coffee and a blanket.
So there's a little video I have created in a worksheet for the guys, and it's really just about digging into their mind a little bit. And all I'm trying to do with the worksheet and the video that I send to them is, I want them to do some inner reflection. I want them to figure out what fires them up. What are their innate strengths? What are their innate things that drive them forward? Where do they feel like they add a lot of value already? I just wanted them to dig into who they already are, because I think a lot of guys just don't trust who they are. So the video and the worksheet, everybody goes through when they're going through the training. It's one of the first things they do, and it has some inner reflection, and it's just helping them find out who they are. Because if you don't know who you are, it's really challenging for us to go through something hard when we're just not even sure who the heck we are, what we're there for. So that's one of the foundational things. What we'll do is really the inner reflection, but then it's going to come out in action. If we think about physical challenges, that's what brings forth character. That's what shows us what our true character is. It's not when things are easy. So we put the guys through monthly challenges. Like this month in the warrior calling, we have 1,000 air squats for time, and we'll do a weekly challenge, a daily challenge. We have events we put them through. I'll bring them to the pool and we'll do some pool skill work. But it's really about having them tap into that version of themselves that's stronger, that is resilient. It's that version of who they are. We just have to tap into it. They need to find that they have that ability to step out of their comfort zone, and they're okay when they get there. They need to push outside their comfort zone. They need to maybe puke on that run. They need to go on that 9-mile ruck that sounds so intense that they don't know that they can do that. But when they've achieved these physical challenges and they go through them, they find out a lot about themselves and how deep this heart really is. And that's huge, because if you never go there physically, the practical side is still in the dark. But when you put somebody through a physical challenge, you learn so much about them. They learn so much about themselves, how they're going to react or respond, where they go when they go into that. Can they go in that happy place in their brain? There's the analogy for everybody, or the perspective is, you have two guys and they're going through Hell Week. They're both the same physical abilities. They both have the same passing PST, maybe. They can both run 4 miles in 28 minutes, but they have two different perspectives. One of them has a perspective is, I can't believe I'm here. Like, I am in Hell Week right now. This is my opportunity to go through this week so I can check it off the counter so I can become a Navy SEAL in the future. I can't believe it. I am in Hell Week, right? That's their perspective. Their head is up. Things are hard. Like, it's challenging, but they're like, I'm doing this. I am blessed to be here. There's so many guys that wish they were in my shoes. I am here. I have the balls to be here. I can't believe it. Then the other guy next to him, his head is down. He's thinking, woe is me. When is this going to end? I'm so cold. I don't think I can go any further. They're pushed to the side of the log. They're not performing. Their same physical ability of the guy next to him, but it's a completely different mindset. Perspective is everything. So you see one guy, his head is up. He's a hard charger, right? But he's same physical ability as the guy next to him, but everything is about your mindset on how you approach it. So we go deep physical, we go deep mental, but then at the end of the day, it's perspective shift. So you got to see the perspective here, man. This is your opportunity. For myself, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second. My grandfather was in a concentration camp in World War II. Wow. And I heard stories from my mom would tell me about what her dad would tell her what it was like. And this was in Indonesia. And he was Armenian. He was living in Indonesia. He was married. This is before the war. He was married, had a kid, and the Japanese came in and took over Indonesia. And he was an auto mechanic. And they destroyed his auto shop, put him in a camp with the rest of the civilians in the local town in Indonesia on the island. And basically he was supposed to fix their vehicles for them. That's what the Japanese soldiers had him do. But he had a heart and he wanted to help people. So whenever there was people that were sick in the village, he would bring a battery to the outside of the camp, was hollowed out, and he'd have them like fill it with medical supplies, and they would bring it back in and he'd help people. And my mom told us that stories that he would say when he got caught a couple of times and they put him in the middle of the camp in a cage in the sun, and he had to stay sane. He had to like use his arm, his body parts to measure the box over and over to keep with it mentally. So he went through a lot, and obviously the war ended and the Allies came and freed the camp, and he came out, he survived, and went to look for his wife and child, could never find them, never found his first wife and child. My grandmother came over from Holland and was with the recovery of the island. They went to go work at the hospital, and she and my grandfather met and they got engaged, and all that happened after. But my perspective on all of that was, if he can go through that hell, I can go through a volunteer week of cold, wet, and sandy, meals every 3 hours or whatever it is, volunteer program to become a Navy SEAL. If he can go through that, I can go through this. And I think some of those guys just need perspective. They just need to see a different side of things, because everything seems so hard. Got to get up early to go run. Like, dude, you get to get up early to go run. You don't realize how blessed you are. The opportunity, you just have to have perspective shift and see what other people have gone through. And now you're like, dude, I can keep my head up. I can do this. If they can do that, I can do this. And I think it's a big thing for you guys. Just have some perspective change on where they're at and what they're trying to do, because that changes everything. It truly does. And so that was part of my why too. Was like, if he can go through that, I can go through hell.
Man, that is an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. With that being said, kind of some of the perspective that you're talking about, there's a reason that they're the greatest generation. You know, I think about all the things they went through, they endured. And then whenever they deployed, it was like, no, you're just going to war and then you'll come back whenever it's over, or you're injured, or even a worse scenario than that. And we're like, oh, we're going for 6 months, 9 months, whatever it might be. I'm seeing, and it's obviously not this extreme. I hope it never becomes this extreme, but I'm feeling there's a trend, a culture shift to where things are getting a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more dangerous. So whenever you talked about 9/11 and how our passion was to go overseas, take the war to the enemies, get the bad guys off the streets, get the guys that are bombing buildings just for ideological or political gain, to get them to stop and to keep that away from the United States of America. You look at the news reels now, you look at what's going on. You have the Ukrainian immigrant in Charlotte killed on the train. You have political assassinations going on. So, with all this chaos and uncertainty, and right now you're shaping the next generation, what kind of advice or insight would you have for having lived it where we lived it, and to maybe bring us together so that we can kind of stop this before it becomes overwhelming and what we've seen overseas that we don't want to have here?
There's a lot of seemingly chaos going on, and the intensity seems to be rolling in faster and faster.